Beyond the Gate spoilers tease that Donnell finds Bill to ask about Doug. The sentence lands like a stone in a quiet room, simple, direct, and full of edges. Donnell expects the truth to be a shard he can pick up, a clean, sharp thing that will cut away the fog that has settled over his life since the accident. Instead, the truth Bill offers is a fractured mirror, slashed with reflections that never quite match, and Donnell leaves with more questions than answers and the sense that some doors, once opened, refuse to close. The diner where Bill sits has been a kind of neutral ground for years, a place where men with long histories can pretend those histories are only small bills to be paid with coffee and time. Donnell finds him nursing a cup like a ritual, the rim of the ceramic worn shiny from repeated use. Bill looks older than his face. There's a flattening about his eyes that suggests habit, a bit of memory, of avoidance. Donnell sits across from him not because he wants sushi or pie, but because the town is small and the possibilities for avoiding the people who know what happened are fewer than the trees outside that throw their shadows across the parking lot. "You knew him?" Donnell opens. It's not really a question. Bill's mouth pulls. "I knew Doug." Donnell watches the words like a tide. There are so many claims that come with such a sentence. Knew enough? Knew well? Knew when he needed help? Bill does not hurry. His voice is careful in the way of a man who has been asked to pull out stitches he has sewn the wrong way. "He came to me," Bill says. "Before the accident." The name "Before the Accident" unspools a movie in Donnell's head, Doug picking at a loose thread, walking with shoulders hunched, carrying something he could not put down. Donnell wants to grab the end of whatever thread Doug held and pull until the whole pattern reveals itself. Instead he gets Bill's shrug. "He asked me for advice, for help." Bill's words are flat now. The kind of flatness that suggests he is reading from a ledger. "I told him I wouldn't get involved." "You told him what?" Donnell asks. The question is a match. He lights it with fury. Bill leans back. I told him it wasn't my place." "That's it?" Donnell's teeth are tight. "You did nothing." Bill's eyes narrow with an old patience. "You think you deserve to call me a coward, Donnell? You couldn't be less qualified." He breaks the sentence so that Donnell feels it like a slap. "Don't ask me to be your measure." It's a strange kind of cruelty, the way Bill refuses to accept the angle Donnell is angling from. Donnell's grief, sharpened into accusation, is a language Bill responds to by changing the subject. "You should blame your mother," Bill says suddenly, like throwing a rock across a room to see which window it will break. "She's the reason Doug was broken." Donnell feels the world tilt. The sentence doesn't make sense, but it does. If your father had been the cause of a man's ruin, if your mother's choices had been the blade that cut him, these are things that lodge into a man's fists. "What are you saying?" Donnell asks. Bill looks away, for a moment a man embarrassed by truth. "I wish it were false," he says. "I wish I were making things up for some dramatic effect. But I'm not. I saw the aftermath. Doug went to pieces because of her." "You're lying," Donnell says. He cannot find the space around the anger to feel the possibility that Bill could be right. It is easier to imagine Bill cruel than to imagine his mother, his steady, small-mannered, practical mother capable of the thing Bill suggests. Bill doesn't deny the accusation with indignation. Instead he lets himself curl outward into a kind of cruel amusement. "Naivete suits you," he says, the words sharp. "You believe in stories because they're neat. People are not neat. Love doesn't come in tidy chapters." Then the words that will not leave Donnell for days. "Doug wouldn't be dead if he hadn't chosen to protect her." Protect her. The phrase is soft but the implication is iron. Doug Woe had always seemed to Donnell like a man with a quiet center, who found his meanings in the small and ordinary deed because he made a choice to stand between something ugly and someone he loved. Bill's accusation splits into multiple shapes in Donnell's mind. Was Doug a fool, a hero, a man who chose to carry another's secret like a weight, and then could not carry it any longer? Bill watches Donnell with a look like an experimenter. "You can blame me," he says, "if it makes you feel better. But you can also blame the woman Doug loved, or the man she loved, or the choices anyone made along the way. I'm only telling you what I saw. Don't make me into something else." Donnell's mouth goes dry. He wants to tear into Bill and take back every accusation. He wants explanations that make sense, He wants to find Doug again and ask him why he chose to die the way he did. Instead he walks out of the diner with Bill's sentences lodged in his throat like stones. If Bill had told the truth, if Doug had gone to him and Bill had refused, it meant something more complicated than a cowardly omission. It meant that there was a knot in the past that tied Doug to more than the immediate tragedy. Donnell's mind keeps finding the same phrase. Doug chose to protect Vanessa. The word choose made everything worse. It suggested volition. It suggested an intention that preceded sacrifice. If Doug had chosen, he had known what he was doing. And if he had known, then there would be reasons. And reasons meant people. And people meant names. Randy's apartment is a clutter of objects that smell faintly of beer and printer ink. He's the kind of man who hides his seriousness behind smirks and muttered asides. The sort who says things in half-sentences because half-truths are safer than the whole. Donnell walks in and finds him in the middle of a late-night repair on some old stereo. The light is yellow and bone-soft, like the one that never quite tells you what time of day it is outside anymore. You told Bill? Donnell opens without preamble. He needs a vantage point. Randy offers a cigarette and a half-smile. No, Randy says. Just heard. Donnell watches him like a man watching a kettle. Did Doug come to Bill? He asks. Randy's hands keep working. Yeah, he says, slow. Doug went to Bill. What for? Randy exhales smoke. For advice. For money maybe. For help. Doug had his head full of ghosts. You know that. I know he loved her. It's a whisper. Donnell knows how his voice sounds. He has said the words before in smaller, private rooms. He is not sure if he wants Randy's confirmation or a refusal. Randy gives him a look as if weighed down by memory. Doug loved her like a man ditches his anchors, he says. He loved her in the way that's not pretty complicated, stubborn. He wanted to fix things. He wanted to keep her safe. Donnell's mind moves like a man assembling a weapon. Bill refused to help? He asks. He did. Randy's voice is soft, but doesn't crack. Bill told him to walk away. Said it wasn't his to carry. Told Doug to stop romanticizing and mind his own business. That's a lie, Donnell says automatically. It's reflex. But Randy's pause says something else. Maybe. Randy uses the word the way one uses a bandage. Practical. Insufficient. Bill has his reasons. Maybe he thought getting involved would make it worse. Maybe he was protecting someone powerful. Maybe he was protecting himself. You haven't said anything about Vanessa, Donnell says. He has stood on the edge of this conversation and now he wants the leap. Randy rubs his jaw. There is an exhale somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. Vanessa? Her family. There are things people don't like to talk about. Things under the floorboards. Doug found one of those things. He wanted Bill to help bury the rest. The image is grotesque in its ordinariness. Secrets as rotten wood. The smell of rot seeping into living rooms. What secret? Donnell asks. He can feel the patience in his own voice evaporate. Randy looks at him not kindly, not cruelly, just with the weary stare of a man who sees people run at windmills they can't do anything about. It's about her mother, he says finally. People have been saying the wrong things for a long time about who Vanessa is. About who her family is. Doug found out more than he could bear. He thought if he could get Bill to do something, anything, he could keep Vanessa from being burned. The same mother Bill was talking about? Donnell's skull rings with the word mother as if it's an instrument. Randy hums like a man picking a tune he'd rather not sing. Yeah, the woman in the center of it all. The pieces fall into place in an ugly pattern. Donnell feels the shape of betrayal. Not neat and linear but knotted and ugly. If Vanessa's mother had done something that would have demolished her family's reputation, if Doug had seen it and decided his honor required he stand in the way, how big a secret would that have been? Enough to ruin people, humiliate them, drive some to desperate choices. What exactly did Doug see? Donnell presses Randy's fingers still, and for a moment he is only a man with a memory that tastes bitter. He saw a record, pictures, a truth that if you aired it would make everything ugly. He didn't want Vanessa to have to live under the weight of that. He thought he could take it away. Take it away how? Donnell's question is small, but the room has a horizon. He wanted to confront whoever was responsible. Scare them. Make them stop. Be the kind of man who protects by putting himself between the ruin and the person he loves. Randy breathes out. He thought his presence would be a shield. The words "thought his presence would be a shield" are heavy. They carry the weight of a decision made out of conviction, not cool calculation. Donnell can picture Doug's jaw set, Doug's hands steady. He can feel, in his bones, the way that sort of conviction leads you into places from which you may not return. Did Doug leave anything? Donnell asks. If Doug had left a record, a letter, a planning, a warning, maybe there's a thread to pull. Randy's shrug is slow. He left fragments. He talked to people. He was scared in a way he never let me see before. He said things in the bars, told me he'd go to Bill. Asked if I thought Bill would help. And you told him? Donnell asks. Because it's a test. Randy looks at him. I told him to do what he thought right. Donnell's chest is a hive. What about Vanessa? Did she know? Randy's answer is softer than anything before. She knew parts. Doug kept things from her, I think because he wanted to protect her from the mess. But Vanessa did. She had doubts. She felt something shifting. She tried to put it into words sometimes, but the truth was a shape she couldn't hold. The conversation hangs. Donnell feels like a diver floating at the surface, the deep below calling, but air is limited. He knows he can't go back to Bill with this. Bill will glibly deflect and stick a label on everything. He needs Vanessa. He needs Joey. He needs the person whose face might show the truth like a map of lines. He leaves Randy with more than when he arrived. Randy gave him the shape of the story without everything in it. It was enough to build a scaffold. It was not enough to answer the final, fatal question: why did Doug choose to protect Vanessa? And who, if anyone, made Doug think he had to be the one to pay? Back on the street, the town breathes damp air across his neck. October has come and the leaves scrape across the pavement like old paper. Donnell imagines the last time he saw Doug, an ordinary afternoon that somehow ends up being the most unreal thing he has ever lived through. He remembers Doug's laugh, the small way his eyes would curl at the corners when he was pleased with something. He remembers the night of the accident with a clarity like a cold burn. Sirens and the smell of twisted metal and the long, stupid hope that he would wake and tell them none of it had happened. But there is no waking. Doug's choices are a stone in Donnell's hands. The only way to learn why the stone was thrown is to find who threw it. Vanessa's house is quiet when he arrives. Her porch light is off, the curtains drawn in a way that suggests minimal engagement with the world. Donnell stands on the lawn, thinking he will knock and demand answers like a man demanding a debt. Instead he sits on the steps and watches the window. He thinks about what Randy said about Vanessa knowing parts, about Doug keeping things from her to protect her. What would it mean if this woman, quiet and complex as she'd been, was at the center of why Doug had to die with his body between danger and the person he loved? He tries the doorknob. Locked. He calls out her name. No answer. The quiet presses like a hand on his chest. He walks around, checks the side of the house, the little strip of backyard where, once, Doug had taught Vanessa how to fix a bike chain. The thought of them together, how ordinary it would have been, how loaded it becomes now, makes Donnell's stomach drop. When she finally opens the door, she is a little surprised to see him. Her face is soft in the way it has always been when she's surprised and relieved, like someone who expects the worst but is granted the middling mercy of a visitor. There's a bruise under her eye that Donnell hadn't seen before, a dark rim he wonders about and then thinks better not to ask. What do you want? She says, and the question is too tired to be accusatory. It's the question of people who have been worn down by being asked what they can't answer. I need to talk, Donnell says. He wants to be direct, to be surgical. He has been given shards of truth and wants to assemble them into a blade that cuts to the heart. About Doug. Vanessa's fingers twist the hem of her sweater. She looks at him the way someone does when a wound has reopened, with an old, careful apology on her lips. There's nothing left to say, she murmurs. Donnell's voice loses its patience. There is. If what Bill says is true. He told me Doug went to him before the accident. He said he stops himself. The words are ugly and heavy. He wants to spare her, but the liar in him thinks spare truths kill people slower. She told me things, Vanessa says, and in the blink of an eye the small fortress she's built cracks. Doug told me some things about my mother. He tried to tell me but I wouldn't listen at first. I thought he was jealous. I thought he was searching for rent in the air. What did he say? Donnell asks. Because the only currency that buys truth is detail. She looks at him and the composition of her face changes. He said she had been involved with someone, that he had evidence. He didn't want it to be public. He thought he could deal with it. Protect me from it. Protect you how? Donnell asks. Taut as a snarl. She bites her lip. By confronting the person. By telling them it had to stop. He thought people could be frightened into doing the right thing. Who is it? Donnell's jaw is a steel trap. He imagines faces, Bill's, someone else's. He wants a name because names are anchors. Vanessa's eyes drift. She admits nothing. Only that she remembers Doug's hands trembling when he'd tell her things. That he kept a notebook. That he was scared. He wanted to take the shame himself. She says finally, and the sentence falls like a verdict. Did you love him? Donnell asks, because the question is as important as any evidence. She flinches as if someone else had punched the word down into her. I loved him, she says, and it's a simple confession that feels like it could be a prayer. Donnell feels the floor tilt. The pieces that Randy and Bill scattered have begun to click. Doug had chosen to be a shield. He had gone to Bill and Bill had refused. Bill had hinted at a betrayal that bypassed the obvious. If Doug had chosen to step up and take on a secret too awful to air, was he noble, foolish, or was he protecting something darker? On arrangement, a transaction, some moral compromise that, once revealed, would leave people ruined? The ambiguity is a kind of violence. It offers no clean resolution. He thinks about confronting Bill again, about dragging the man into sunlight and forcing clarity. But clarity, he knows, can be a weapon as much as a bomb. It can destroy people who make others comfortable, and Bill may be an instrument of that kind of comfort. Donnell sits with that. The knowledge that sometimes truth is not a remedy but a torch. Vanessa's eyes search his, looking for a verdict that he cannot give. You think he died to protect me? She asks. I don't know what I think, Donnell admits. There are things he is sure of: Doug's courage, Doug's decisions, but the reasons for those decisions gather like winter clouds and refuse to pour. I just know that whoever knew he was coming didn't step in. The conversation stalls under the weight of what is not said. Donnell feels the tiredness settle in him like a second skin. He wants information and he wants comfort in tidy places. He has neither. He leaves Vanessa's house with the taste of unfinished business in his mouth. He knows now, more than ever, that the only way to get answers is to keep asking, keep pulling at threads until the pattern is visible. The day is cooler, the sky a slate that seems ready to cry. Donnell walks with more purpose now. There's a list in his head: Bill, Randy, Vanessa, Joey. Joey, where is Joey in all of this? The name echoes in the back of his throat because Joey is the other axis of Vanessa's life. If Doug protected her, was Joey the reason for it? The safeguard? The cause? When he thinks of Joey he sees a young man with quick smiles and a shuttered seriousness. He imagines Joey standing in rooms, hands in pockets, hiding guilt like a coat. Donnell decides he will find Joey and ask what he knows. He will go through the steps of the past like an investigator with a flashlight, shining it into corners no one wants lit. There are 100 ways to pursue a truth. Donnell is choosing to do it with friction, with confrontation, with the kind of blunt force that reveals more than it heals. He knows it could break people. He knows it might break him. But he also knows that Doug deserved better than incremental mourning and polite lies. Donnell wants a story that fits, something that lays the bones out in the open so the town can either forgive or condemn. He wants cause and effect, but people are messy, and secrets are designed to be messy. He lifts his face to the sky and feels October cut him like a clean blade. The search goes on. The night gathers. He is certain of nothing but this: the hush around Doug's death is not empty. It is a place full of people who know more than they will say, and men like Bill who are happy to tell half of a story if it suits them. Donnell intends to force the rest into daylight. There are steps he will not take tonight. He will not yet go back to Bill and throw his received fragments like stones. He will, instead, go where Randy suggested and where Vanessa left an opening. He will look for Joey, And in looking for Joey he will step into a web that will pull him further from the edges of his controlled fury and deeper into the uncomfortable truths. He is not prepared for what he will find, or for how fragile the illusion of knowledge can be once it is forced into daylight. But Donnell will do it anyway, because grief has sharpened him into something that cannot abide half-truths. He walks toward Joey's house like a man readying himself for a long fight that will demand more than he has ever given. He knocks and waits. The door opens and the smell of aftershave and warm coffee leaks into the night. Joey's face is blank for a second, as if deciding how honest to be. Then, as if deciding there is no point in more masks, he steps back and lets Donnell in. The house is small and filled with the sort of life Doug never had: mementos casually placed, a couch with dents that suggest ease. Joey offers coffee with hands that shake a little. "What do you want?" Joey asks. He tries to keep his voice steady. There is a tension in him that Donnell has seen before. The kind of tension that comes with people holding on to secrets and pretending to be fine. Donnell tells him everything Bill said. He tells him about Randy. He tells him about the bruise under Vanessa's eye and the way Vanessa looked when she admitted that she loved Doug. Joey listens like a man with his own part of the map and who is trying to gauge whether he is the hero or the villain in someone else's story. When Donnell finishes, the silence between them is long enough to gather dust. Joey runs a hand through his hair like he is pulling at knots. "Doug came to me sometimes," he says at last, and the words feel like a confession. "He said things. He asked me to help. I didn't know what to do. I thought if I stayed with Vanessa, we could keep her safe from anything." "What did you mean?" Donnell leans forward. He can see the honesty in Joey's face like a sore. Did you know about her mother?" Joey's head dips. He looks like someone trying to remember the boundaries of a map he once drew. "I knew parts. I knew there were things in her mother's past. But I didn't know the whole story. Doug said he had evidence, said maybe we could make it stop. He wanted to do it without making it public." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Donnell asks. "Because I wanted to protect her," Joey says, looking like a boy who has realized his hands grip too hard. "I thought keeping her away from the storm was what she needed. I thought if I stayed, if I made sure no one hurt her, then the truth couldn't touch her." The logic is jaw-droppingly simple and monstrously naive. Donnell stares at Joey, seeing a man who loved someone and tried to make the universe a smaller place so the person he loved wouldn't be crushed by it. The impulse is noble. The outcome has been catastrophic. "You knew Doug went to Bill?" Donnell asks. Joey shakes his head. "No, I didn't." "If I had," his voice breaks like a twig. "If I had known, maybe." The sentence hangs unfinished, riddled with the kind of remorse that will not be fixed by apologies. Donnell has wanted people to give him paths forward, to hand him threads he can pull. They are telling him what they have: fragments, confessions, and the cruel knowledge that decisions made of love can lead to death. He thinks about Bill in his diner chair, the way Bill refused to be blamed and the way he deflected responsibility onto a woman who may or may not have been guilty. He thinks of Randy's half-truths and Vanessa's exhausted sorrow. He thinks of Joey, with his good intentions that could not stand against secrets sitting like landmines. The night is a map of small lights. Donnell leaves Joey's house with a heart that feels like a bruise. He has been handed a new configuration of the same old puzzle. He knows now with bitter certainty that Doug went to Bill and was refused. He knows Doug chose to protect Vanessa. He knows that Vanessa's family harbors a secret big enough to ruin people, and the burden for that secret, for whatever reason, fell on Doug's shoulders. The hollow inside the investigation begins to ring with new possible truths. But the last rattle comes, soft and dangerous. If Doug chose to protect Vanessa, who else knew? Who else would benefit from his silence? It is not enough to know reasons. Donnell wants people to own them. He will not rest until he hears every name, until the broken things are aired, until someone pays for cowardice. The next step will be to gather evidence: photographs, notes, anything Doug left behind. There must be a paper trail. Doug kept things. He loved people enough to write them down, to plan, to prepare for the eventualities. Donnell believes that somewhere, tucked into drawers or pockets, are the fragments that could change the story. If he can find them, then he can force the town and Bill and Vanessa's family to reckon. If he cannot find them, The town will keep telling itself stories that let it sleep easy. The night stretches. Donnell walks home with a new mission tight in his teeth. The grief that had once been a dull ache sharpens into a blade of purpose. The first step has been taken. He has names and half-truths, and a map of the people who stood in Doug's last days. But the map shows only roads and not the terrain. He knows the hard work is not in naming, but in proving, in seeking records, in asking the shy questions that open doors. He will find Doug's notebook, or he will find the man who burned it. He will drag the truth into daylight like an ugly prize and force the town to look at it. Tonight, he will sleep badly. He will dream of gates figurative and perhaps literal beyond which people disappeared in the past. He will wake determined. The next day, the search will resume, and Randy's half-truths will be pursued until they either break into truth or break them all. He will go back to Bill if he must and force him to say more than the blunt fragments he handed out. He will chase Vanessa's story to its end, and he will stand in the courtroom of the town and say the names loud enough that they cannot be ignored.